Welcome to the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. This is episode 11, Dead Reckoning. My name is Tyler.
Hello, this is Kevin.
This is Tyson.
In this episode, we're going to discuss the games that we've been playing lately. Then we'll jump into our feature review of Dead Reckoning. We'll close out the episode with some things that we are excited about. Welcome back, Tyson.
Yeah, Tyson's back.
It's good to be back. I'm happy to be back. It's interesting because I came back and I got to hear all the wonderful episodes without me that Ben was on, and it was really interesting to sit here as a audience member of the Longest Turn podcast and not a participant. And I gotta say, I enjoyed listening to you guys. You guys came up with some good content. I will say, however, that you took some cheap shots.
Well,
Kevin did.
No, no more than usual.
Again,
right?
I listened to the episode, so I know what happened.
Well, we're glad to have you back.
Well, I mean, it's good that you've got the perspective of a listener, you and the other 9 listeners that we have.
Right.
We may be in double digits now. We could be.
We're getting up there.
In the teens.
At least episode-wise, we're in the double digits now. Yeah, so for those listening, I was gone for a month. It was a work trip thing, and I spent the whole month doing some trainings and other things, and I didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to play games because mainly I wasn't playing games with people who are super interested in hobby board games, but I did get to play some games, so I'm ready to talk about some of the games I played.
Let's kick off what we've been playing lately then.
Well, you'll be really excited by the games I've been playing lately.
Are we going to be jealous?
So jealous because let me tell you, the first game that I got to play, the first game I saw, because I brought some games, but I didn't bring them out to play with people because they were mainly solo games. I wasn't expecting to play with anybody, but somebody did bring a number of board games with them on this trip, and that was great. They brought Cards Against Humanity, Exploding Kittens, and several other variants of Cards Against Humanity. One called That's What She Said, and another one that was a cell phone version of Cards Against Humanity. So we played a lot of these styles of games, and I'll be fair, those games, while not my choice, like by default, I would never choose one of those games. It was a good opportunity because I didn't know some of these people that I was on this trip with. And so this was an opportunity for like an icebreaker a game experience. And I didn't know anybody. It was a good opportunity to get to know people. So as far as that perspective of what those games offer, it was good in that regards, though. I do not necessarily recommend that if you're going to go the apples to apples ripoff variants of games. I don't necessarily recommend that That's What She Said or the cell phone version of the games. Cards Against Humanity is probably the better of that.
Yeah, it sounds.
If quality
sounds a little rough, but
it sounds like at the exact moment I was suffering through Unstable Unicorns,
I was going to say
suffering through Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah, and I did get Exploding Kittens as well, so we did play that, which I haven't played Exploding Kittens for years. This was probably the first time in years that I'd played that, and that was interesting.
Interesting is a good word. I've played that a few times, and yeah, it's not my favorite. Interesting is a nice way to put it. I
did win, and so it made me think maybe there is some strategy to it. But then I played again and got utterly destroyed, and so
it's one of those games more of an activity,
than
an actual game.
It's a hot potato with fun kitten art. So
yeah, it's not my favorite one.
One of the issues I think though with Exploding Kittens is that you can gang up on people, and that's exactly what happened. Is I won the first game, and then everybody said, "Well, we can't let Tyson win again," and so they just always took cards from me instead of taking cards from anybody else, and they used any of their bad cards on me until I exploded, and I had nothing that I could do. So I still had fun with it. It was a good way to get to know some people. We did play one game that I will consider as a pretty good game that I really enjoyed. which was Codenames. We ended up playing Codenames, and I hadn't again played Codenames in a number of years, but this was another really good activity, a game experience to get to know people and how people think, and so it was good in that regard. So I played a bunch of really small games. We played some like playing face card games and things like that, but really I didn't get to play a whole lot of games. So I was excited to get home and actually play some of the things that I was really excited about.
Which version of Codenames? Just
plain vanilla Codenames.
Plain vanilla?
Oh, nice.
That's a good one. I like Codenames.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played that one, but I always enjoy getting that one out. It's one of those party games that I actually like. I'm not a big fan of party games normally, but it's a good one.
Yeah, and the good thing about it is that you have the ability to play with any size player count you want. I mean, obviously, the more players you get, the less invested maybe some people get, but it's easy to check in, check out kind of a game and keep some interesting conversation around the table. And so yeah, as party games go, it's a good one. I enjoy it for that. We played with a guy who believed he was less smart than the rest of our team. And so he kept saying something to the effect of, just remember, lowest common denominator is what's going to sell it for me. So
it's like, dumb it down here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so it was fun to be, that is something about Codenames I do enjoy, is that you can give a spectacular clue, right? Like, and it's fantastic. But if it's not catered to your team and you don't understand how your team is working, it may just fall completely flat. So it's great in that regard that there's that social element to it where you're looking at the people who you're working with and thinking, oh, if I give this kind of a clue, they're probably going to interpret it this way. Even though I can get 3 or 4 potential clues on the table, it may not be the best way to go because they'll probably select this card over here instead of the one that I'm wanting them to. So there's some fun, like, read the table elements to that game that I enjoy.
Cool. Sounds fun.
Sounds like you had a good trip.
Yeah. Overall, it was a really good trip. I ended up on that trip finding out that, hey, there's another opportunity from my work, and I will be leaving again for another 2 weeks here for work, going to St. Paul, Minnesota this next time. So, and this time though, I do get the opportunity to play some games with one of my coworkers that I found out plays a lot of board games. So there's a chance that I might be able to get something like Perseverance or other types of games played. So I'm excited about that.
Nice.
Awesome. That's great.
Go to a wild playoff game while you're there. Hockey.
Yeah, no,
okay.
Any reference from you that's sports related, I'm gonna assume first hockey, and then I'll go down
the way you looked at it, Tyler. I don't think you're going to be going to a wild game.
No. I don't think so. Maybe if it was Penguins, right?
No.
Kevin, what have you been playing lately?
Yeah, I've been playing. So a week ago, we were trying to get a game night scheduled, and everybody was busy except for our buddy Mark. So I was hosting at my house, and immediately when I knew that it was just Mark that was coming, I'm like, well, we got to get Memoir 44 played, right? So I texted him and I said, I'll have a Memoir scenario set up. And he's like, oh, awesome. So he comes over. I had a scenario from the Pacific Theater set up. I've played a little bit of that one, but not a whole lot. So I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into it and see what was different. And it was awesome. I've talked a little bit about Memoir 44 before and how it's one of my favorites. The more I play it, the more I enjoy it. This game probably is top 5 for me at this point. It's just a lot of fun. So the differences in Pacific Theater are you have the Japanese army. You have different tiles that are in the game. So you have jungle tiles, you have rice paddies, you've got this hospital tile, you've got HQ tiles. They all do different things. So the terrain behaves differently. The jungles, I think you can go into a jungle and battle the same turn for example. Normally you go into a forest and you can't battle when you go into the forest. Rice paddies are just miserable to try to get tanks through. It switches up the game and how it plays. So we threw all that stuff in. The coolest thing that we put into the game is the scenario called for night rules. So this battle took place at night. So when you start, your visibility is only to an adjacent hex. So close assault combat is all you can do to start off the game. When it's the US side, you roll 4 dice, and then for every star that's rolled, you move this little token on the visibility mat up 1 spot. And your visibility then becomes 1 hex further. So it really changes up how you play. In the scenario we played, there was a lot of artillery that the US side had. The artillery was completely useless at the start of the game because it couldn't see anybody, right? So usually artillery is really powerful. It wasn't to start off the game. Added a complete different dynamic to the game. The Japanese army, they attack differently. So they will rush you, and they get extra dice if they have a full unit in close assault combat. They can move 2 spaces and still battle in close assault combat. So they're just going crazy. It was just a lot of fun. And then this one that we played also had special objectives that if you went and got those objectives, then you get an extra victory point. So we played that. It seems like every game we play of Memoir, it comes down to the last roll, and it's exciting. I finally beat Mark. It happened,
Whoa.
right? Wow. Because the times we've played before, he's either absolutely destroyed. We played the Overlord scenario that one time. We just got completely destroyed. We played up at Cabin Con. We switched sides, and he destroyed me on both sides. So I was able to come out victorious this time, and we had a great time playing. It takes a bit to set up Memoir. So I'm like, it's 10 o'clock around there. Do we want to play another scenario? And Mark's like, yeah, let's get another scenario out. So we got another one set up and played through that one too. So it was a lot of fun.
One?
I did. I did.
Whoa. I don't know if I can look at Mark the same way anymore.
Well, I mean, some of his roles, they just weren't working out for
Off
him.
night.
But win or lose that game, I always have a blast. So obviously always fun to win, but the stories that the game tells is awesome. So
I loved in the group chat when I found out it was just going to be you and Mark, and I was like, oh, sounds like Memoir 44 is getting played. And Mark's like, nailed it.
Yeah. We had been texting separately about it and already figured it out. But yeah. So that's Memoir 44.
All right. So one of the games that I've been playing lately with my family it's actually an expansion. It's the Alchemists expansion for the Quacks of Quedlinburg, which came out in 2018. The Alchemists came out in 2020 and is the second expansion for Quacks. This is a game I'm probably pushing 70 plays of this game.
That many?
No, that doesn't sound right.
70's a lot.
I'm probably pushing 50 plays of this game.
That's still quite a bit.
If you're not familiar with Quacks, it is a bag building push your luck game where you are making potions in a pot by drawing out different colored ingredients from your bag. And you see how great you can make your potion. However, if you draw out too many of the cherry bomb ingredients, your pot will explode and you don't get as many rewards in the second phase of the round. So the first phase of the round is drawing ingredients out of your bag and seeing how far you can go. Each ingredient, almost every ingredient except for the white and the orange, has a special ability. Some of those abilities are immediately used, and some of them are used in phase 2 or are reconciled in phase 2 of the round. You're trying to build the best potion that you can. The further that your ingredients advance in this spiral track in your pot without exploding, the more money you'll get for selling it, as well as you'll get more victory points for your potion. So when either everybody has stopped or their pot has exploded, the first phase of each round is ended, and then the second phase of the round starts, which resolves a number of things and dishes out rewards and victory points and allows players to buy more ingredients to add to their bag for following rounds. So Quacks has played over 9 rounds. It goes really fast. I think it's a great game for both gaming groups and introducing to new players. I wouldn't say it's a gateway game. It's a little bit heavier than that, but getting back to the Alchemists expansion, which we played for the first time, it's really cool. It adds some asymmetric powers to the game. So there are a number of ailments that are available to choose from. I believe there's 8, and in any given game, there's 3 for players to choose from. So you might have the same ailment as someone else. And in addition to an ailment that you select, you also have a Alchemist Flask track. It's a new board that fits above your pot. This expansion adds a new phase to the game, the Essence phase, which happens after the first phase, before the third phase. Based on how many different colored ingredients are in your pot, you move up on the Alchemist Flask track, as well as if people next to you exploded their pot, then you will also advance a space for those. And if you finish the round with your pot having a cherry bomb value of 7, then you'll also advance a spot. So some of the ailments are like earworm or chicken eyes or forgetfulness or nervousness or witch's hump. So each one of these ailments has different rewards based on how far you get on your Alchemist Flask track. And the track resets after every round. And some of these are more powerful than others. Some of them are pretty easy to use. My wife had one where she could buy an extra ingredient every round, which was super OP in my opinion.
That doesn't sound like an ailment. That sounds like a boon. Like you're getting good
no,
stuff.
I mean, everybody gets benefits from their ailment.
I'm just saying from a thematic standpoint,
hey,
I'm self-medicating here to get rid of my ailment that's already been helping me. It sounds a little bit confusing.
So I was going to clarify, when I say your ailment, that is the ailment that you as the player selected. However, your quack, or the guy making your potions to sell at the market, does not have that ailment. That is the ailment that customers are coming to see him for, and he is treating his customers for that ailment throughout the game. So it doesn't break down thematically. If you don't like this game, that's okay. I love this game.
To be honest,
I don't mind
to be honest,
game.
Everything that you just said does sound like something I'd like to try. I don't necessarily not like this game, or at least every time somebody talks about the game, I think that sounds fun. I want to try that. And then I go and try it, and my experience is not all that exciting with it. It's a fine game. I like it as a push your luck kind of experience. But if I'm going to play a push your luck game, I'd rather play like Can't Stop or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a little more to it that I like about it. I like that you can put this in front of a big game night group. You can put it in front of a heavy gamer group. You can put it in front of people who've never played board games before. It's not that hard to learn. I think it's a lot of fun. There is, some push your luck, but I love the bag building aspect of it. That's one of the things I love most about Orleans. And, I think it's so much fun to increase your chances, to take your game in a specific direction while still being dependent on the
It is a good game that you can bring to
chance.
Anybody and play with them and teach them some more it's a good next level kind of experience where it teaches you different types of mechanics that you'll see in more complicated games without being complicated itself.
Yeah, you mentioned Can't Stop. It's obviously got more going on than Can't Stop for sure. And I like the game. I don't know if I love the game, but I like the game. And I'm interested in the expansion. Yeah, I'd like to give this one a chance. My last experience with Quacks was not great. I think that my last round was just that's the nature of the game, right?
It's rough when you pull the white chips out.
Yeah.
And you explode early, or you feel like you're going to explode early.
Yep.
And it's even worse when you've got 20 chips in your 25 chips in your bag, and you pull all the white ones out and explode early in the last round.
Yeah.
And that is frustrating.
That is frustrating. But on the other side, I've had games where, you know, it's awesome, right? And you're just pushing your luck and getting exactly what you need, and all the tokens that you have are working well with each other. And that's a fun feeling.
Yeah.
For sure.
One thing that was really awesome, we finally got to play with some upgraded bits. Ben, who helped host this podcast the last couple episodes, was nice enough to give me the upgraded bits out of the blue. Amazing. It was just awesome to have those. My cardboard ingredients are pretty worn from extended use.
50 to 70 plays.
That's right. Somewhere in that range.
50 to 70.
Whatever, Tyson.
If only there's a way to track plays.
I didn't want to take up time looking that up. So anyway, these, you know, if you can afford them, they're pricey, or if you have a very generous friend, or Christmas is coming, or birthday, or whatever, put these on your list because they are awesome and definitely worth it if you are a fan of Quacks of Quedlinburg.
I would recommend finding a generous friend.
Yeah. Right?
That's great. Everybody needs one of those.
Well, you just talked about aesthetics and how beautiful components really made your game excellent. The next game I want to talk about is a game that the aesthetics leave something to be desired, perhaps. This is a game that we talked about, I think, episode 5, I believe, is the episode where we did our Shelf of Shame list. This was on my Shelf of Shame list, and it is The Golden Ages. The Golden Ages is a board game designed by Luigi Farini. The publisher is that, or at least my copy is from Stronghold Games. And the art is from Alexander Roche. And I mentioned the artist because, and I don't want to give this guy too hard of a time, but it has its own character, this game. And I think part of the reason this game may not have received as good of a opening to the board game community is because this game is not a looker. This is the Golden Ages, as I said. And if you look at this box
he did
cover,
the art for Trois, too.
Did he do the
No,
art
he
for Trois?
didn't.
He did. Look
He
at
did
it.
the art for Trois?
Yeah, look at it.
I love the art for Trois.
It's the same dude.
It is.
You're kidding.
It does look similar.
Is it really the same guy?
Yeah.
I love Trois art. Like, that's one of the things I love most about the game. I can't believe it's the same guy. That's funny.
This game is, the art for this, we've talked about in the past when we talked about this on the Shelf of Shame episode, that it rivals Hansa Teutonica's art, right?
Yeah,
in the box and what we think of that.
Yeah, that guy on Hansa Teutonica, I don't know what's going on with him. Yeah, that art is not great.
But from box cover to box cover comparison, I'm not sure who would win that. I think that
Golden Ages is coming.
I think so.
A little below Hansa, I think.
But here's why I think it absolutely does is when you open the box and you look at all the cards in the box,
So bad.
at least in Hansa, you don't have all this other art in the game.
Yeah, there's
itself.
a lot of art in this game. And
There's
it's
a lot.
equally, I mean,
I got the Queen card, right? Like one of the cards I got, and I'll explain how this game works here in a second. But you get in this game cards of leaders for your civilization, and you can change your leader throughout the game. Well, one of the leaders I potentially got was I think she's supposed to be the Queen of England, but it basically looks like the Queen of England's body with a pasted on face of a man on the body, and it was stunning.
She did look a little mannish. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
nothing wrong with that at all. But I don't think that was
the intention.
The intent.
Right.
That's what made it kind of funny.
It did make for an interesting experience to see, okay, what's the next card I'm going to get, and what does this art look like, to the point that it was actually really entertaining in and of itself.
It did. It ended up kind of adding to the game, right?
Yeah.
It made it entertaining, and we laughed about it. And I don't know if that was the intent of the art, right? That you're supposed to laugh at it, but it did add to the game.
It does.
Right?
It adds a character to the game, and
For sure.
and it adds experience. And I think I've come to enjoy it because of the art. Not only, but like I think that the art has a specific feel to it now that makes me like it's endearing in some ways, right?
Well, there's some art that it's so bad it's good.
Right.
I don't know if this game if that's this game, but I don't. I think it doesn't hurt.
Well, let's put it this way.
I don't think it hurts the game.
My box has a pretty sizable hole / ding in the box, and I showed the box to both Kevin and Ben, who were playing this game with me, and they were so distracted by the art that they didn't even realize until I pointed it out to them that there's a hole in this box.
What happened to your box?
I think it was in shipping. It just it got delivered like that. I got a free copy of this game.
If there's a damaged box, I'm going to notice it because that's one of my biggest pet peeves. But the fact that I didn't notice, really,
it says something.
There was some other stuff going on distracting me from that for sure.
But yeah, anyway, let me tell you how this game plays. This is the Golden Ages. It's a 2 to 4 player game, and it plays between 60 and 90 minutes.
Starting to think this was an art podcast.
Right. Let's talk about the board game. It is a civilization-style game, and it lasts through 4 eras, and you're growing up your civilization, increasing technologies, everything that a civilization game should be. You're constructing buildings, you're exploring lands, doing different things. And every round consists of a number of phases. And each of those phases are mostly things like, hey, put out a tile to explore the map, to expand it. There's a cleanup phase, but the bulk of the game happens in the action phase. And there are several different types of actions you can take. You have colonists in the game, and the colonists are exploring the map, and they can go out onto the map, and you can do actions if you have colonists, but there are also other actions that you can do without colonists. So basically, you're playing until you have to pass. And when you pass, you start a golden age is what it's called. And that golden age, it allows you to kind of progress into the next generation, the next age of your civilization. One of the cool things about this game, and I like this type of mechanic in a lot of different games, so it's great to see it here, is that when you're the first person to pass, you have a capital on the map, and you flip the capital token over to reveal it has a 2 coin symbol. And if people continue to pass after you, every time it would come back to your turn, you collect 2 coins. So it creates this decision for the other players to have to decide, am I going to continue passing or continue playing and potentially give Tyson some more money every time I pass, or am I going to stop? And I love that kind of tension in where is the optimal time for me to pass and when is the optimal time for me to continue playing after it's passed. The other thing that it does really well with that pass mechanic is you have these historic or history judgment cards. So the first person to pass gets to choose the round score for that round. And every game there are a variable amount of but there are different cards that will come out for round scoring. And I believe there are 5 at least in a 3-player game. I think there were 5. I think that's actually in any game, you're going to have 5 history judgment cards because you're going to have 1 more than there are ages in the game. When you select a history judgment, it creates the scoring condition for all players at the table. But by passing first, you get to choose which one scores. So you're going to try and pick the one that's going to do best for you and the worst for the players you're playing against.
That was super interesting because you look at everybody else's board and you know it's going to score them a lot of points.
Right.
So that makes that decision of when to pass even more important, because you don't want to give other people points. You want to give yourself as many points as you can. And you may pass early just so you can choose that card, which makes for, I thought, a really interesting decision.
I loved that. And then you add that like money by passing and I'm going to keep getting money. It made a number of decisions for me where I was like, well, there's a few things I could continue to do in this round. and they would score me points, but are they going to score me as many points as I could by both taking the optimal scoring condition from me and taking away the optimal scoring conditions of the round for the other players? And I loved that because it created this ambiguity of, is Kevin going to pass before me, or is Ben going to pass before me? Who's going to pass first? And should I do it now, or should I wait? Should I push that kind of envelope just a little bit further? And I really enjoyed that experience with this game. There's a lot of really fun mechanics in this game as well. And there's some interesting situations that can arise. Everybody starts their civilization at the same level, which is basically you don't have anything. You have the very basic technologies of you have like a wheel and you have like fire and things like that, which allow you to do basic things. But it's interesting to me how, as you're playing, essentially you could pick the same technologies but go a different path for how you're going to play the game. And there's a lot of different paths to victory, I think, in this game, which was really fun. And I think there's a fair amount in this box that makes it so you're not going to see the same thing every single game. So there's a lot of replayability in it. And after playing it, I'm glad that I finally got this one off of my shelf of shame. And I think that it does a great job of being a civilization style game. I'm a little sad that it is not as well known as I think it should be, because I think it has the potential to be a really fun game. There's an expansion out that I
was going to mention the expansion.
There it is.
Yeah,
that
there's
I didn't
at least one
pick up. So
I'm not sure if there's two or not.
I think it's only one.
Only
but
one at this point.
Is it out of print, the base game, or?
I don't know that it's. I don't think if it's out of print, it's not. I think you can still find copies of it.
Yeah. One thing. There's a few things that are a little negative in my mind from our play. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole play until the very end. It got a little weird. Ben was a little bit behind Tyson and I. He got this card. I don't even remember what the card was, but he didn't have to.
It was a leader, a civilization leader that he specifically got at the end. So every round you get, in between rounds, you get the choice to choose between two leaders. The leader that you had from the previous round, or you could choose a new leader. And that's what he had.
Yeah, and normally you got to lay down your guys and you only have a certain amount of actions per turn. His leader, they didn't have to do that. So
they didn't exhaust, essentially.
Exhaust, right? So Tyson and I were done. We were getting income every round, but Ben, he took
16, I think.
It was like 16 more turns than we did, which was crazy. And I don't know. And
That's the whole game of Praga.
It is the whole game of Praga. So, and we looked in the rules just to make sure we were playing it right. And from what we could see, everything, we were playing it right. But it was cool to watch him do that, because he really manipulated that card and made that card work for him.
Well, and he had another thing to combine it too, as well, that like he could have had like his colonists exhaust in some capacity for a specific type of action, but he also had another like technology. So like when he deployed them, like he didn't have to, if he fought somebody, right? Like he didn't have to use a colonist to fight somebody, which means that so he could explore indefinitely, and then he could fight people indefinitely. So he basically could do whatever he wanted.
Which seemed a little broken to me, right? So that was the only negative. He came back and ended up winning, which was cool to see. But if Tyson or I would have gotten that card in that combo, we would have just run away with it. Right.
Because the score distribution at the end was within like 4 or 5 points between.
It was really close.
All of us, essentially. So it was close. In general, I'm hesitant to like make a determination on balance issues in a game.
Right.
But this one was so much so that I would I would almost just choose not to play with that card.
Yeah, and how didn't that come up in playtesting? I mean, I don't know. That's why I was thinking, are we playing this wrong?
We could be playing it wrong.
Is there a rat out there?
We tried to check that, and I don't think that we were.
But that's just a small thing. That's one card in the whole game. The experience of the game was just a blast. I really enjoyed it. And I would happily play it again. maybe taking out that card. I don't know, but it was fun. I
Because
thought it
there's
was a
so
lot of
many
fun.
other cards that we didn't play with, I would feel just fine taking out that card at least until I'd seen the rest of the cards played. So
Sure. Yeah.
Do you think this is a game that we'll play as a group?
I'd love to play it again.
I'd love to play it again too. Yeah. I thought it was fun.
It was on my shelf of shame for 6 years, and now I'm a little sad that it sat there for so long because the
art was calling to you.
Exactly.
Why didn't you play this game?
But yeah, that's the golden ages.
Another game I've been playing is a game I've played a lot of. This one is Azul. I think a lot of people have played Azul. There's a bunch of different iterations of it. There's a new one, Azul Queen's Garden, that has just recently come out. But I think overall, my favorite version that I've played is probably the first one. Summer Pavilion is right up there as well. It goes back and forth, but I love the simplicity of the first one. The drafting is just amazing. So the way that this game works, if you haven't played, is there are a number of, I think they're called offer tokens that are on the table in front of you. There are 4 tiles that get placed on each of these offer spaces, and you are drafting those tiles. So when you take a group of tiles, you take all of one color. Any colors that don't match what you take go into the middle. You then place these tiles on your player board, and you're trying to get them on your player board in groups of either 1 to 5. At the end of the round, once all tiles are drafted, you then move any complete row that you have from the left side of your board to the right side of your board where it matches that color tile. The whole goal of the game is you're trying to get columns and rows together, and you score more points based on how well you do that. So if you have, 5 in a row, you're going to score potentially 5 points. If it's hooked to a horizontal row, then you're going to get more points for that. And you play until a certain end game trigger. So that's, you fill up, I think it's 5 in a horizontal row. That triggers the end of the game. There's some end game bonuses that you can get if you get a complete horizontal or vertical row, or if you get all of one color, you're going to get end game bonuses. And then whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. I've been playing this one on BGA. I entered a tournament. So that's why it's been recently played for me. And it's a great implementation on BGA. I'm enjoying it a lot. I don't know if I'm going to do well in the tournament, but I really like this game. Like I said, I like the simplicity of it. It's not a hard game to play. The drafting makes it really interesting. It's very interactive. There can be some hate drafting.
Absolutely.
And there probably should be some hate drafting if you want to do well, because you don't want to give that person that's drafting next exactly what they need to score a ton of points, which is kind of cool. I like that.
My favorite part about the hate drafting is that the hate drafting can be done as taking away a specific thing or leaving a specific thing behind for people to have to
that can
pick up.
hurt really bad. I've played games where there's 7 or 8 black tiles in the middle, and you're looking around the board going, okay, there's 2 more turns and Tyson's going to get stuck with those.
Which is fantastic, especially if you do it deliberately and you see somebody can't fit any of those on their board, right? Because you have your board has a number of columns with different amounts that can be set in them. So the highest one is 1 tile can be placed in it, and the lowest one you require 5, I think, of a tile in there, right? So if you have 7 and they still have 5 open spaces on that bottom row, well, they're only going to take a hit of 2, right? But if they have that bottom row maxed out and all their big ones, they're going to take a ton of negative points. And I think that's really fun. And when it happens to you, you can't help but be like, well, that sucks, but it was the right move to make.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't feel bad about it.
You can't be mad about that, right? Like, maybe you could have played a little differently so you weren't in that situation, right? I don't know. It's not a real punishing game in that regard, I don't think. But it is. It does make for some fun decisions, for sure.
I like the Summer Pavilion a little more, I think. But the original Azul is awesome. I do think it's better when you play the backside of the player boards where you have complete freedom, still following the rules, but freedom of putting the tiles where you want to put them. Whereas on the front side, there's designated spots for each tile and each row.
Yeah, it does make it a little bit more interesting on the backside. You can get yourself into some bad spots if you're not careful,
Right.
which I think having that additional thing that you're paying attention to makes it more interesting.
The first time I played with the backside, I didn't realize I was playing with the backside. And I was still doing the exact same pattern as front side. And I was like, why is everybody else's board look so much different than mine?
Yeah, that's funny.
That's funny. So that's Azul. Been playing that one lately. A lot of fun.
Nice.
It's a good one.
Another game I've been playing with my family is the Crew Mission Deep Sea. And this is Cosmos's sequel to the 2019 The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9, which we also played through as a family. Both of these games are cooperative trick-taking games. You're playing through a story, and each mission has some flavor text added to the story, and then tasks that you have to complete to beat the mission. And if you don't complete those tasks, then you replay the mission. So in Mission Deep Sea, you are searching for some, I don't know. To be honest, we didn't really read the story for this one. We followed the story every mission for the space one, Quest for Planet 9. But in this one, we started reading the story, and then, you know what, we're just like, forget it. Let's just go on to the next mission, right? So in this game, a number of tasks are divvied out between each player, and then numbered cards in suits are also dealt out to each player. And then you take turns picking a task that you think you can complete. And everybody can see the tasks, and everybody knows which tasks each player has. And then you cannot communicate during this game other than usually once per mission, you can indicate, hey, this is my lowest blue card or my highest blue card or my only blue card, right? That's to the level of communication that you can use generally for each mission. There are some special rules that change from mission to mission. But basically, you're trying to, let's say Kevin's trying to win all of the sevens, and Tyson's trying to have the most odd cards, and I'm trying to win all of the submarine cards, right? Which are basically trump cards. So we start playing hands, and it's a cooperative trick-taking game, which is so unique. You're working together to try and make sure so-and-so wins enough tricks to get their task, and then the other players are able to do it as well, which when you start out, it's pretty simple. But as you go along, you start having 2 and 3 and 4 tasks to accomplish per player, which makes it really hard. We haven't played through all of this one yet, but it has been a really fun experience. The one major difference about this one is that, in the Quest for Planet 9, each mission had very specific tasks laid out for you that you had to do. In this one, there's a deck of tasks that are each has a value assigned to it based on its difficulty, like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So each mission in this game says, okay, a difficulty of 7, deal cards, task cards out until you get to 7, right? So sometimes those cards are really easy to achieve, that are completely random, and it's a thick stack of cards. Sometimes it's really easy, and sometimes it's next to impossible to complete those cards. So on one hand, I love that, the variability there is off the charts compared to the first game. But on the other hand, I feel like the first game was a little more balanced from mission to mission. But such a fun game. It does say that if it's impossible to complete the tasks that you have, then you can deal new ones out the next time you play it, or if you realize it before you start, you can replay it, deal them out right away. But have you guys played this game or the first one?
I played the first one.
The first one, yeah.
And we're maybe 10 missions in, And it's been a while since we played it, so we got to pick it back up again. But it was fun. It's a different take on trick taking, like you said, and it takes a little bit to wrap your head around it. Like trying to manipulate getting people cards is pretty cool. And when you pull it off, it's pretty exciting.
It is awesome.
It's fun. I liked it a lot.
It can get very frustrating if you have to play the same mission over and over and over again. This is not a trick-taking game that I would throw in front of new gamers. You could throw a lot of trick-taking games out there and have them playing in a few minutes. This would be miserable, I think, playing with new gamers.
It's interesting you bring that up, right? Because when I hear the term trick-taking, I think basically anybody can play that. And then you throw on the term cooperative trick-taking. Well, first of all, I think, why would anybody want to do that? That's my first thought.
Right.
And then I play it and I'm like, this is fantastic. Like I would have never thought to put trick taking and cooperative together, but it becomes a really cool experience. And I know what you guys are thinking. I hate cooperative games.
I didn't say it,
but I don't. And this is a good experience. This is a good representation of a cooperative game and why I like it. It's because it allows you to have. Each player has individual information that they're only privy to. The limited communication means that you cannot come over here and figure out the best strategy for what I'm doing. It allows you to be able to work together in a way that you are reliant upon me making the right decisions rather than you making the right decisions for me.
This might be the first co-op you actually like, right?
That's not true.
No.
I like cooperative games that are usually I like narrative and adventure style cooperative games more than I like a specifically strategic style cooperative game. But yeah, the crew is interesting in that it if you had told me those two terms, cooperative and trick taking, didn't seem like they were compatible at all to me.
No, that's the first thing I thought of too. It's like how are you? Does this even work? But then you start playing and it does. It works great.
I think it's easy to get a little frustrated with the players you're playing with too, because you're setting them up right. Like, oh, I'm totally leading this in for you, and then they play a card that. You're like, what are you doing?
Why would you do that?
But like you said, like they can't see your hand of cards. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times we're on the same page as a family when we play this, and then there are missions where it's like, you know, but
it just doesn't work out.
Yeah. So we played all the way through the first one. We've failed on many more missions this time around than we did in the first one. But we still haven't completed it. We're getting close. But
so let me ask you this. If you had to compare the two and say, I've got two questions. The first is, do you have a preference between the Deep Sea or Planet 9?
I liked Quest for Planet 9 more. I thought the missions were more balanced. I thought the story was more interesting. We didn't really give the second story a chance. If I didn't own either of them, I would buy the Deep Sea one, and then I would find a copy of the mission booklet online for Quest for Planet 9 and play with the Deep Sea cards. And I'm sure there's overlap there enough that you could play all of the missions from the original one with cards from.
See, that was my second question. That's interesting because my second question was, is there room for both of them on your shelf? And it sounds like effectively if you have Deep Sea and you go to BGG and get the rules for Planet 9,
if you wanted to, right? I think Deep Sea, if you don't own either of them, I would get Deep Sea. They don't take up that much room, so I'm going to hang on to both of them. But if you didn't own either of them, Deep Sea kind of removes the need for Quest for Planet 9, I think.
So I thought of this one during our last episode.
Oh, you did?
Well, I thought that I thought maybe that you would include
for the top five.
In your top five. I was a little surprised that it wasn't on there because I remember when you played through the first one.
Oh, we played through it in 2 or 3 days.
You were just playing that nonstop, and I remember getting texts from you saying this game is awesome.
I think I had more fun playing the first one. It goes back to drawing random task cards that you're supposed to complete. And we played some of those sets of cards 7 or 8 times. And, after you play it a few times, it's like, this is miserable. And we'd come up, 1 or 2 cards short in the tricks of what we needed to finish it. And it was deflating to fail time after time, right?
So did you enjoy the first one more because of it's a new the concept of its cooperative trick taking?
Yeah, I think it was the overall new experience.
Yeah.
But I felt like the missions were more balanced. Okay. And I think the most we failed any one mission was 4 or 5 times. And we didn't fail a lot of them. So we were much more successful. So
I haven't won or gone through the first one in its entirety. But I'd be interested in checking this one out. It's still
talking about it. I want to go back and pull it out and start where we left off, right?
Yeah, we tried to play a couple games on BGA.
Oh, it did not work.
It did not.
I thought I enjoyed it on BGA.
You liked
actually,
it?
It's not great, but
there was the first time we tried it. I'm not entirely sure everybody in the group knew that it was a cooperative game.
And I hope that wasn't me because I've played it before.
I don't think it was. And then in the second game that we tried, I think it would work well if you're playing it live. It would be fine.
Yeah.
But playing it turn-based, you kind of lose track of what cards have been played. And, that's a common problem with some of the games on BGA where if you played them
still
live,
okay
they'd
with
be
it.
great.
But I was okay with it. But the thing is, you could never stop playing that game on BGA.
Yes,
and never win it, right? Because you could go through all most of the missions and still go for weeks and weeks. Because I think we had our game on BGA going for a long time.
Well, and you can set it up so that when you finish one mission, it sequentially automatically starts the next mission,
right?
Which I think is actually a cool feature. But it just didn't work out.
But I didn't want to go to the next mission.
It was too painful.
Well, no. Just for the reasons you explained. It just didn't translate well, I thought, to BGA, which, like you said, is a common problem for games that are like that. So, yeah. There's no knock on the game at all. It just wasn't a great experience there.
So that was the Crew Mission Deep Sea.
All right, so that wraps up what we've been playing lately. Let's move on to our rules, and to kick us off, Kevin's going to start us with a rules overview for Dead Reckoning.
Dead Reckoning is designed by John D. Clare and published by AEG. In Dead Reckoning, you are the commander of a privateer vessel ready to set forth into uncharted waters. Explore unknown islands, gain influence and establish outposts, hunt for treasure, or terrorize the seas. The choice is yours. Each choice will move you toward a series of achievements, and once a player has completed 4 of these, the game end is triggered. But you are not alone in your thirst for glory on the high seas. You are in a race against the competing interests of other players, each in pursuit of victory on their own terms. Can you be the best explorer, merchant, or privateer, and will your strategy choice prevail? When the smoke clears, the player that most successfully navigated the challenges of Dead Reckoning and finished with the most treasure will win. Dead Reckoning is a big game. I'm not going to go over all of the rules, but I'll give a brief explanation of how the game works to hopefully give you a little feel of what it's like to play. Dead Reckoning is a game of exploration, piracy, and influence based in a Caribbean-esque setting. Each player commands a ship and crew and seeks to amass the greatest fortune. They do this through pirating, trading, treasure hunting, and importantly, capturing and maintaining control over the uninhabited but resource-rich islands of the region. During the game, you can customize your ship. Your ship is represented by a figure on the board. The board starts mostly unexplored and will be revealed as you venture into uncharted waters. You also have a shipboard where you load cargo and treasure, and you can customize the guns, speed, or holding space of your ship. You can card craft your crew. You have a small deck of cards that will drive your actions in the game, with each card representing one of your crew members. This deck functions like one in a deck building game, but the cards in the deck are sleeved, and rather than add new crew cards to your deck, you improve the skill and abilities of your crew cards by placing transparent advancement cards in those sleeves. Aside from the transparent advancements, your crew will also level up naturally during the game using a card leveling mechanism. You can control the regions. The region is filled with many deserted islands. These islands are a major source of treasure, and players will battle for control of these islands. You can battle via a dynamic cube tower. You can battle other players' ships or NPC merchant ships. These battles are resolved via a cube tower with crew cards and ship powers, increasing your chances of victory. Players take turns one after another. Your turn consists of 2 phases, carried out in the following order. The first is the main phase. This is where all the action of your turn happens. You perform a number of different actions. These actions include loading, unloading, rearranging, or jettisoning goods and money, playing a card from your hand, setting sails. This is how you gain movement points on your turn. You can move your ship. You can buy the advancement card or resolve the encounter card in your ship's current space, or you can use an ability of a played card. The last thing you do on your turn is the cleanup phase. After you have done all of your actions, it's time to sleeve your new advancements, draw new cards, and reset the board ready for the next player's turn. Optionally, you can also raise your pirate flag and go into pirate mode. Pirate mode will help you protect areas you control and could force others to attack. When your turn is over, you will level up a card in your hand when your opponents are taking their turns. During the game, players will be working toward achievements. Achievements include having a certain amount of money, sinking another player's ship, and having a certain number of buildings on the board, for example. At the end of your turn, if you have 4 more achievement markers placed on the harbor board, the end of the game is triggered. Each other player gets 1 final turn, and then the game ends. The player who triggered the end does not get an additional turn. After all turns have been taken, final scoring happens. Players will get coins for achievements, coins in their treasure chest and islands, ship upgrades, end of game advancements and number of advancements, and control of islands. The person who has the most coins at the end of the game wins. So that's a brief explanation of how to play. Let's get back to the table to see what we thought of Dead Reckoning.
Thanks, Kevin, for that rules overview. To start off, let's talk a little bit about the production of this game and what we like and dislike about the production. Tyler, what do you think about the production of Dead Reckoning?
This game is beautiful. I love the card crafting cards, the see-through plastic cards that are used to upgrade your crew members. Super cool. Really nice. I've never played with cards in games that I can think of that are see-through other than, the section that they're adding to the card.
They're great high quality, right?
They're very nice.
They're not like gonna just be flimsy things that you slip in and out or are hard to handle. They feel like actual cards that make it easy to pick one up and sleeve it, which is really nice.
And they need to be high quality because you're adding to those cards every game, and yeah, they're gonna last a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no concerns about the longevity of the game because it's such high quality, right?
Right. They get a little fingerprinty.
Yes.
So I recommend a wipe down after every few games.
Which can be tedious. That's one thing about the production and those types of cards, right? Is that it makes teardown a little bit more tedious. And if you want to clean them up afterwards and not have those fingerprints, it makes it even more of a process.
Yeah.
So, but that's the nature of having a card crafting style game, is that you don't do it. There's not a lot of upfront setup, though, which is nice because you're making those cards as you're going throughout the game. So
yeah, and I think if each player stays and helps take apart their cards and put them back to each crew member back to level 1 and pulls out the advancement, that's really not that big of a deal. I do love there is a treasure chest that's cardboard, but it has a really nice finish on it. And that's where you store each player's components when you set up the game.
Is it magnetic?
It's not magnetic.
It feels like it has that,
it's got a little weight to it,
right? It's got some.
It's like a little tuck box type thing. You're gonna.
I don't think it's magnetic, but you use it during the game as well as storing a player's components when you put the game away.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's where you hide how much money you have during the course of the game. Super cool. Just totally thematic, right?
And I really like that. They could have gone simple with that, where a lot of publishers will put together here's the punch boards and here are 5 or 6 different pieces that you have to fold together to construct your box or whatever. And they didn't do that in this one. This is a quality box that, like I said, is it magnetic? Because I feel like it's secure and it's not going to go anywhere. And it's really, it goes well because all the components in this game are really high quality for the most part.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing, a positive thing I want to bring up before we go to the negative, I guess, the art is just amazing, right? It's Ian O'Toole art, and we've talked about him before in games. He just does such a great job, and it adds to the theme. The iconography is clear. Everything makes sense, and that's just a hallmark of his games that he's involved in. You know, I love all the art. It adds to it.
Well, and it's on every little thing too, which is I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking earlier with the card crafting and sleeving things, the backs of those card sleeves are beautiful, like the art that's on that, and you've got a couple of different kinds of card sleeves as well.
Yep.
And I love that.
Does it bother you that you have to use card sleeves on this?
They're a mechanical function, and so it serves a purpose as opposed to card
just
sleeves.
Just protecting your cards.
As far as production goes, the sleeves in Dead Reckoning
are awesome.
Are fantastic.
Oh, they're great.
Beautiful.
And they're necessary. They're 100% necessary. I can't imagine having some other form of mechanism to keep these together.
What would you do?
Right?
I'm just going to hold them together.
Here, let me get the Scotch tape.
Betrayal clips.
Yeah. Dead Reckoning branded Scotch tape.
Yeah, betrayal clips would be bad.
Yeah, the cards are just falling all over themselves. Yes.
Yeah.
No, this is a good solution for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said, the Ian O'Toole art, amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room then. The thing that I think we all agree on is a poor production issue. It is the pirate flag, right? The pirate flag. In the game, you have the ability to either fly your colors or keep them hidden. When you fly your colors in this game, you have to put out this cardboard chit that literally hangs on one of the masts of your ship.
One of the flags on
one of the
mast.
flags on one of the masts of your ship. And
it does not stay in place.
It doesn't. It falls all over the place. I felt like at one point the easier way to do it was just treat it like a surfboard and just set my thing on the cardboard shit and say, "Hey, I'm in pirate mode,"
which is a problem, right?
Because Kevin didn't notice that you were in pirate mode.
I didn't know you were using your surfboard.
Yeah.
So I came over. I didn't know you're in pirate mode. And it's funny. It depends on the ship you have too, because I was the blue player, and mine seemed to stay up there better than your guys's. I mean, Tyler would try to put it on and just flop off immediately,
it was
right?
like, okay, forget this.
Yeah, so it became a surfboard for Tyler too, but mine stayed up there, which it doesn't even look like a flag.
That's what
right?
I was gonna say. Is it doesn't look like a flag at all. Like I watched. I think it was Knights Around the Table does a video rules overview of the game, and he must have had an early version of the game when AEG sent it to him, because they're different flags and they've got the Jolly Roger on it that looks really great, but the ones that you have in your final production copy don't even have the Jolly Roger on it. It doesn't look like a pirate flag.
Did you open all the boxes?
I did. I did.
Right.
Yeah, whoever
was
designed
this
that
chipboard that
component
was just supposed to be thrown away? Is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Whoever designed that component should walk the plank.
Yeah. It's a minor thing though at the end of the day, but it is a little bit annoying.
It is, but
right?
it's not like, so we talked about like Praga, right? And the 3D components in Praga, and how like at least you can set those aside and not use them, right? You need the pirate flag in this. It's functionally necessary to be able to do stuff. You brought up the perfect example, Kevin, saying that I had my flag flying, but it really wasn't flying because I was surfing on it. And it's needed to be seen for gameplay purposes.
Yeah, that's true. One
other suggestion, and this is coming back to Kickstarter this summer. AEG is going to do a new Kickstarter, a reprint, and add another expansion to it. But one of the things that I would love to see is some kind of marker or token for you to flip after you upgrade one of your crew members each round. Because like in a 4-player game, by the time it gets back to you, sometimes, you can upgrade your character, upgrade a crew member right away, or you can wait until it gets back to you and upgrade it right then. And sometimes, there's long turns in between there, and it's like, oh wait, did I upgrade one of my crew members already? I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, I think I did, right? So if there was some kind of little marker or token to flip or to, indicate, hey, I've upgraded my crew member for my last turn.
Yeah, and it could make a difference because you may be holding off and think that I'm going to upgrade my gunner because I might get attacked.
Right.
And I need a cannon to help in this battle. So you're not always doing it immediately. Sometimes it's an easy choice. I'm just going to do this regardless. But sometimes you want to hold off because it has real game implications, right? So, yeah, I completely agree with that.
We didn't talk about the battle cube tower that's actually a ship made out of cardboard. What did you guys think about the cardboard ship?
Mechanically, I love it. Like, I think the way it works and the way it looks, I think it's phenomenal. Kevin, I think that when we played,
I loved it in that game.
Well, you had the same experience that I had, is that I rolled my cubes into there and then accidentally bumped it, and some of the cardboard gates kind of just popped off, and I was like, oh no, what's going on
borders
here? Right,
around
the borders.
Yeah,
those don't snap in very well.
Yeah, that's my biggest complaint about it is the borders don't really stay.
They've been kind of worn at this point after 7 or 8 games.
Yep, which you would hope that they would last a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
But the ship itself is awesome.
The ship is super cool.
It is really cool.
I think I talked about this a couple episodes ago when I talked about what I'd been playing lately. I talked about assembling the ship and how I Neanderthaled it because it does not fit together well. Some of the cardboard pieces that you have to add, you're kind of shoving them in there, and
it looks like a pirate building, right? So it's fine.
Right?
It's fine. It's thematic.
Plus, I have the ghost ship, which my wife, who is much more precise and patient than I am, can put together. So. And then I can start using that one instead of the one that I built. So when that one starts to wear down, or if it doesn't last, then I'm immediately going to switch to the ghost ship.
So I remember hearing you say that about mauling your pirate ship a little bit.
It just adds character to the ship a little bit.
But I deliberately looked at it after that to see if I could notice. And there was maybe a small spot here or there. But for the most part, I didn't notice that it did it, which goes to show that the cardboard quality is pretty good for this game. Good. Like, you get good quality cardboard.
And I like thematically, you're shooting your cannons out the side of your ship, right?
Yeah, and you're aiming. Well, at least some of you guys are aiming your cubes.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's one thing. You're supposed to just drop them in there, right? Yeah. But we played one time. You're kind of maybe guiding a little bit to where you want to go.
With how you release the cubes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that gets into gameplay a little bit. Right? We're peeking into gameplay. This may have been the longest conversation we've had on production. So let's go ahead and talk about the things that we liked about this game as in regards to the gameplay. So I'm going to pass this one to Kevin because I know that Kevin's got some things that he really enjoyed about this game, and I think there's some things that he may not enjoy as much. But I want to hear a lot of the things you do enjoy. So what about you, Kevin? What are some of the things you like?
Yeah, I think for me, by far the best part of the game is the card crafting. It's just awesome.
That's so much fun.
It is so much fun to level up your cards. And I had a card in this last game that unfortunately I didn't get to use it a whole lot because the game ended. But it was so cool to see that card. All 3 slots were filled up. There were the wheels in there that give you bonuses if you have a certain number of wheels. I don't remember what the bonus was, but I had 3 wheels on there. If that card would have come up later in the game, super powerful card. And that's just so cool to see and to build those. Every game's going to be different because there's different upgrades that are going to be available. So, that variability is cool, but actually having those cards in your deck's awesome. And it's fun. The whole mechanic of you shuffle, somebody says, you got to get rid of the first 3 or 4 cards. You're feeling the thickness of those cards. You're like, no, no. Or all of those cards are thin cards. You're like, yeah, sucker.
It's such such a small part of the game. But when someone asks for the number to put on the bottom of their deck, like, it's exciting. It's exciting. Really fun. I feel like almost every aspect of the card crafting is really thought out. You know, I love that there are level 1 and level 2, level 3, level 4 cards. I feel like I haven't even seen most of the level 4 cards, and there's still a bunch of level 3 ones that I haven't seen yet. But I love how they come out, you know, constantly throughout the game. You're sailing around. Oh, there's one on level 3 that I really want, which would be perfect for my gunner or for my captain. I'm going to sail out there to go buy that card.
Yeah, and there's cool decisions to make, because last game we played, I wanted to focus on battle. That was what I had in my mind to start. And I'm like, yeah, there's this upgrade card out there that has a cannon on it. I want that card. Or there's a card that has a battle effect on it. I want that card. So like you said, you're sailing around to different spots because it's part of your strategy to get these upgrades to your cards. And it's just a fun process. I like it a lot.
That card crafting is central to almost every single thing that you do, right? So one of the things I really like about this game is the discovery. I mentioned this a little bit already, but there's discovery in every regard, in the fact that you can discover new islands, the fact that when you've collected a piece of card to be able to craft with, there's another piece that'll come back. So every island has value continuously throughout the game. So it's discovering those islands over and over again. It's not old. And then in your own hand, there's discovery, right? So I discover the value of a character that I'm crafting throughout the game, and each round it becomes better and better. And it's a discovery approach, which makes me feel like, I think you have like 12 cards in total, right? Yep. It doesn't feel like I'm playing with 12 cards. It feels like I'm playing with a full deck of cards, like in a regular style deck builder. It feels like I'm playing with a lot of cards, and I'm discovering those new cards over and over and over again because I get to change those cards as I'm going through. So the discovery in general in this game is just off the charts, I think. And I love discovering new things. And just like you said, Kevin, it changes every game you're playing, because on the side of the board, you have those little boxes, which we didn't talk about in the production value, but that contain your card sleeves or your card parts. And those are great because you can have so many different types of cards come out. So like Kevin was just mentioning, this last game we played, there was a card that had a cannon on it, and it was great. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't see that card in a specific other game, but it can mold how you're playing the game. So I really love that whole discovery element.
Well, and going back to, employing different strategies from game to game, and it kind of forces you to focus on upgrading different character or different crew members than you did in previous games when you're trying to go a different route with your strategy. Kevin, you were very hostile in this last game.
I was.
Right off the bat, I was like,
I almost
Kevin's
sunk you right. Yeah.
There was like a good 3 or 4 turns where I was hiding on the outskirts of the ocean on the end of the world, or in harbor.
Scared of Kevin.
I had no weapons. I was going a pacifist role,
and I was aggressive.
Yeah. My ship had 4 damage at one point. If you get 5, your ship sinks and you lose victory points and have to go back to harbor and all. These different things. And I mean, I was running away from you. I was trying to figure out how many sails you could set, which is your distance you can move each turn, just to stay out of your reach.
And I was actively hunting you.
You were.
It was my goal to sink your ship.
And you know what? It didn't upset me at all. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that in that game specifically, the way that the map unfolded was the tier 3 cards where you would be able to go the furthest out in the ocean, or tier 4 cards rather, the furthest you can go out, all ended up being open sea.
which was kind of terrible.
It was, yeah.
Because I was the one that sailed out there, and then I got stuck out there because I had goods on my ship. I couldn't.
But it
sail.
also protected you in that instance.
It did a little
because
bit, yeah.
It made it so that Kevin or myself didn't want to go out there, right? There was no purpose for us to go out there. I mean, maybe to get a little tier 4 advancement, but it's not like those advancements were so spectacularly different from tier 3 to tier 4 that it was worth not going to an island and just staying in open sea. So I like, again, that discovery is there, and each game is going to come out differently, how those islands come out, but it makes your strategies change, just like you were saying, Tyler, with you may not use the same crew every time or upgrade them because it's going to be a different game every time.
Yeah. I love that so there's these merchant ships that come out, right, as part of some of the advancement cards. And you can choose to pull up and trade with these merchants or buy them outright, buy their advancement, or you can choose to fight. But you have no idea how powerful they are. I'm sure Intel wasn't that great back then. But you pull up along the ship, you flip it over and it might have 2 cannons hidden in the side of it, or it might have 6, and I don't know. I love that aspect of it, that you can just buy the advancement or you can battle them and then get a better advancement usually.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that part of the game as well. It adds a little bit of unknown. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And when there's unknown in games like that, it adds excitement, right?
Yeah. That's
why, a little bit of luck in games isn't bad because it's exciting, right?
Well, and it adds value to that battle mechanic. So say Kevin couldn't reach you, right, in the open sea in that game, he still had options for using his cannons if he needed to, because he could go after merchants, and so it gave purpose to a mechanic that is typically confrontational. That if you can't reach or you don't want to, you can still put use to that, which is it's fun.
Yeah.
I do like the battle mechanic. You drop these cubes in this cube tower, which is a ship, like we said, and you can lose the battle, but you can still gain a lot of goods from the battle because there are designated spots that give you coins or barrels, which barrels are the main things that you use to buy advancements and add buildings to the islands you control, and they're what you actually are paying to do things. Whereas coins are just, you're collecting the coins and then bringing them back to harbor to add to your chest. They're just strictly victory points. But I love the battle mechanic. I think it's really fun to drop the cubes. And then there's also advancement cards that give you additional battle abilities. It just creates some fun interactions and experiences.
Yeah, I like the battle mechanic. It's not my favorite. And this will be kind of highlighted a little bit in the dislikes. But it does create some exciting moments for sure.
I like how it's handled overall. The cube tower is a fun way to handle a battle mechanic because it's not completely deterministic, but there's a lot that you can do to ensure success in your battle, right? And so that's great. But it lends hope to somebody being attacked, that I may be attacked, but I may not get destroyed. And there's a perk for even I can get stuff out of this, right?
Yeah.
Like which is nice. So there's parts, I agree with Kevin that there's parts of the battle mechanic that aren't my favorite, but I agree with Tyler in that there's a lot of really cool things about this battle mechanic that really, I think it's unique.
You could replace it with dice.
Yeah, it's basically a randomizer. Yeah.
And it wouldn't be nearly as exciting.
I agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's other games that use dice that are, like the Cthulhu Death May Die comes to mind, that are super exciting.
No, and I think you can have exciting battles with dice. I just think in this instance, tying in with the pirate theme.
True. Yes.
I think it's so much more fun that you're dropping cubes through this tower that then land into
like
the designated areas.
Shooting.
Yeah, right. They're shooting across the water.
I don't disagree that fundamentally, fundamentally you could make it with dice and it does effectively the same thing. and dice can be very exciting. There are some super exciting moments with dice, but I feel like personally, games that use dice as or designers rather that use dice as their primary mechanism for conflict, and this is not always true, but I feel like there could be a better way to do it. And I love when a game does try something else besides dice as their conflict randomizing mechanism, because it creates a different experience that is unique and special. And like a cube tower, it's been done in a number of other games, but I like the different spins that you can put on mechanics. Like there's a lot of games that do different mechanics in for conflict in different ways besides dice, but I really appreciate when somebody puts effort into avoiding using just dice.
Yeah, another thing that I like is I like how there are variable paths to victory, right? So it's a 4X game. You can do whatever you want in this game, which I think is pretty cool. Like we mentioned that in the last game, I focused on battle, which was awesome. I thought that was great. You can focus on area control. You can try and get the most influence cubes on all the islands, right? That's a viable strategy. You can try and plunder the islands and get as many coins as you can back to your harbor, right? That's a valid strategy. I did that in the second game, and our scores were really close in that game, right? You can focus on the end game achievements if you want to do that. You only get 4. You can get more than that, but that's a good way. You can try and rush the game and get it done quickly and get those achievements and get those points. There's just a lot I think you can do that is a viable strategy that I don't think, at least in my experience, one's not necessarily more powerful than another. It's just if you pull off your certain strategy better than another person, you have a better chance of winning, right?
And it also depends on what the condition of the board or the game state is, right?
Sure.
That makes those more or less viable.
Different every game, which is awesome.
Yep.
One of the things I like about this game is the end game scoring. Achievements. When you collect 4, that triggers the end game. You can get more than 4. And in this last game that we played, and in previous games, I've had this decision where it came down where I could trigger the end game and possibly win, or I could delay getting my 4th achievement, delaying the end of the game, which will potentially give me more turns, and I might be able to get 5 or 6 achievements. I think that's a really cool decision when it gets down to the end of the game. It's like, do I want to end this? Like, could I pull it off? Or am I hurting myself by ending it now? And in this last game, I chose not to end it, and we ended up playing 2 or 3 more rounds. So Kevin triggered the end of the game, so I had 1 more turn, and Tyson had 1 more turn, and I drew a hand of cards. I had like 8 cards in my draw pile, and I drew the hand of cards that was the worst possible situation, right? And had I drawn the other 4 cards, they were all stacked. They are all upgraded. I would have scored, I think I figured out I could have gotten 2 more achievements than I ended up with. And it didn't play out how I wanted it to, but it was still exciting, that decision of trying to figure out, should I end this game or should I let it go? I love that the game does not immediately end when the last achievement is put out. There are some disadvantages of not being the one that triggers the end game. So I think that's cool too. Like, there is a benefit to triggering the end achievement, but there also is a benefit to holding out and waiting to see if you can get even more achievements done on your turn by not ending the game. I like the decision of, should I end this? Can I win it if I end it right now? Or am I better off to hold out? But how many points are Kevin and Tyson going to get if I don't end it right now?
Yeah, that's a cool decision.
Yeah. I like that we talked about that sort of in Golden Ages as well earlier. I like those moments as well, because it does create almost an anxiety of should I or shouldn't I? And I do like that. So the last thing I want to talk about that I really enjoy about this game, and Kevin touched on it very briefly, is the area control in this game. It is, like Kevin said, and it is a potential way towards victory, but whether or not it's a potential for victory, I love the way the area control is handled in this game, because each island has a number of slots essentially, for cubes to go on, and it becomes this sort of tug of war type of an experience in that you can gain control of an area. Once you get control of the area, you don't get necessarily complete dominance of the area for the rest of the game. Instead, somebody else can come and put a cube on that location, a cube or 2 or 3 or 4 or how many they want, and they can change the tides, as it were, of the island and take control. I really like how that works, because now if you take control of it, it's not just this black and white, oh, now Tyler has control of the island that I just had. Instead, I had a permanent cube by having control over it. Now Tyler has a permanent cube on there as well. So I'm not necessarily out of the running for controlling this island. I really like that back and forth.
It preserves the history and the story of that island and what happened. And it's really cool that, you might get beat out at the end on an island, influence-wise, but you still had some influence there that's permanently there, and that you will get victory points for. Not as much as the person that has the most influence on the island, but those permanent cubes go towards the overall scoring of that area at the end of the game.
That is cool. And I like how you don't necessarily have control for the rest of the game. You can make it hard for other people, right? You can make it miserable. When they come in, there's a cannon, they take damage. There can be, is it a fortress that's in there? Yeah. The fortress makes it harder. Yeah, I got to,
you stop that before you can interact with the island at all.
And what I found in the games I played is if I put a cannon on that island, people are just going to go around that island, right? And I'm going to have control of it for longer. So it's kind of a deterrent,
which is super interesting.
Which I think we evolved. Like initially in the first couple of games I played, we didn't really build a lot of cannons and forts,
right?
And then we've kind of seen the value in protecting the islands that you control and how important that is, and getting those forts out, especially.
It's interesting, the cannons specifically. Like, I love all the buildings and what they can do. I like the ability to interact with that island, make it yours. It's going to be different. If it changes hands, it's going to continue to be different. But the cannon specifically is interesting to me because it guarantees you 1 point of damage by entering that space. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily the worst thing that could be there. Sometimes that fortress could be worse because you can't do anything with that island until you get that fortress. But the psychological impact that a cannon has on a territory is really interesting to me, because it means that, I just better avoid that. Because in the game, there is this fear that Tyler mentioned earlier of your ship being sunk. And it is a real threat, because it is a formidable and a terrifying prospect to get sunk.
It sounds like you have some experience with this.
I do, and we'll get into that. But again, comparing Scythe a little bit, it's not necessarily the combat that is always the worst thing in this game. It's that fear of combat. It's that fear of what could happen that I really like. Now, I think Scythe is a little bit less aggressive in its combat than this game, and it's a little bit more punishing in Dead Reckoning. But I do think that that I love when a game can make that psychological warfare as important as the actual conflict that occurs. And I think this does it well by using things like the cannon, or, hey, I'm at 3 damage. It would be very easy for me to sustain 2 damage if I go near Kevin, and he may or may not do anything. He may choose to go into an area. Probably will. But he may choose to go into an area and know that you're afraid of him so that he can take advantage of certain things. And I like that about this game. So I think that's a pretty good wrap up of a lot of the things that we really do like about this game. I think there's more things that we could probably go on and talk about. But let's move into our dislikes of this game. And with that, I'm going to actually start this one off because it goes right in with what we were just talking about. Your ship getting sunk, right? not necessarily the ship getting sunk is the bad thing in this game, but so we were playing this last game that we were playing, right? And for those listening, I've only played this game one time, and this was the last time I only had the opportunity to do so. But in that game, I was not fully aware of, and it wasn't to anybody's fault. It wasn't to Tyler's teaching or anybody. Like I watched videos on this and I understood it, but I didn't fully comprehend the severity of losing my ship. And so when that happened, Kevin came at me, and it was a perfectly viable and valid play for him to make. It was the best option for him. It got him an achievement by sinking my ship. It might have gotten you two right?
achievements. It was my 4th battle, and then I sunk your ship.
So it made perfect sense to sink my ship if he could do it, and I totally understand it, but I didn't understand the full impact of what that would cause. I was on the cusp of getting an achievement or two myself on my very next turn, but Kevin sinking me meant that the money that I had, because one of the achievements I was going to get is if you get 30 gold, you get an achievement. Well, I was at 29 gold, and I was very much going to get a few more gold in the next turn. But what ended up happening is I got sunk, and I had to pay 5 gold. Not only did I have to pay 5 gold, I had to pay 5 gold to Kevin. And
awesome.
Who thematically, I totally understand it. You've just sunk and pillaged my everything I've worked for, and I get it. But it was such a deflating moment in that game that I was just like, I was kind of floored by it. It was not something that I expected in at least in its entirety. I don't know that I think I could move past this in future games, like just understanding it better, so it's more of a me. But it was a very deflating moment. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you don't like conflict in your games, do not play this game, because there is some serious potential for conflict. You could play completely conflict free, but I mean, there's always that option for it. If somebody sees it as an opportunity, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel good.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't mean it's bad.
But
like,
now you know
as
I
a
was
mechanic.
hiding out in the harbor half the game.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Because he was loading up on cannons the whole game. My ship was damaged. He was chasing me around.
But that didn't seem like a fun option either. Like, right? Like going back to hide in the
but
harbor,
it was
wasting
just an
movement
extra
on it.
consideration on my turn to, hey, I'm going to go out and do something and then make it back to harbor.
I know, but that means that I have to use a
Or I
certain amount
sail
of
to the ends
sails.
of the earth. And
Right.
yeah.
It just made it less of a interesting prospect for me to go and do that. And the more exciting stuff was, I want to be on the open sea.
Yeah.
But, that all happened, and it turned out not to be the deciding factor of the game. Right?
No, exactly.
Right. So similar, we've mentioned Scythe, similar to Scythe, you can not battle and win the game. In this one, you can not battle, get your ship sunk by the person that is battling and win the game. It's not just because you get sunk, you're out of it. It may not feel good, but it's doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be competitive.
I did win, right? So I ended up going and winning the game, and which ended up making me feel a little bit bad because I had such an emotional swing throughout that game, right? And so I like it's not the battle mechanic itself that or being sunk itself that I dislike. It's that the game can have a moment that makes it feel like super deflating, like almost hopeless.
But now that you have experience with that and you know what to expect, it's probably less of a concern, I would imagine, right?
Agreed, but it's still, I could see myself feeling in the moment when somebody's like, why'd you attack me? I understand why you attacked me, but this ruins all of my immediate and future plans that I've made up to this point.
I guess if somebody is super sensitive to conflict, I would say avoid this game.
Right.
Because there is conflict and there is the potential that you lose victory points, or have your island that you control someone in comes in all the time and swaps influence enough that you lose control of the island. I guess there is, that if you're super sensitive, stay away, right? I'm not saying you're super sensitive to it. I understand what you're saying. You
quit being so sensitive.
You didn't expect what would happen, kind of, and it was a little deflating. It happens, right? It's part of the game. So
yeah, one thing about the battle that I think is a great design decision is, like, for me in that game, later on in the game, I was not incentivized to battle anymore. I had those 2 achievements, and sure, I could have sunk Tyler's ship, I guess, and maybe taken some money from him. But it wasn't going to help me towards an achievement to end the game, So I had to kind of pivot and try to focus on something different, which I think is cool, right?
But even if you're attacking someone and you have more cannons, you're still putting your own ship at risk.
You are. It's not guaranteed you're going to win.
The cubes, the cannonballs that get fired, the cubes that get dropped, they could drop into double damage areas, and your ship could get blown out of the water really quickly.
Yep. It's no guarantee.
I agree with you, Kevin, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, that is cool.
Because that was exactly what I thought was, as soon as you got those achievements, a lot of the stuff that you, like a lot of the battling that you had done became not necessarily pointless, but it didn't give you the advantage that other strategies would give you by doing something different throughout the rest of the game, which I really did appreciate that as a design decision, because if somebody just wants to be a jerk and attack, because like when you sunk my ship, initially I was like, oh, I want to get you back. Like, right.
Well,
like
you
I
started
want to get you back.
Getting cannons, and you had one card that would have,
well, I mean, I had already been doing that, but even when I had those, I had a bunch of cannons and stuff. It wasn't to my advantage to go out of my way to find you and find your ship. And in fact, it worked better for me to sink merchants at that point in the game. So I do like that. But yeah, it was just that it can feel bad. And that's just something to be aware of. Not necessarily a knock on the game, but it's something you should be aware of going into this game.
So I have a couple things that I dislike about this game. One of them is teaching the game. It's a long teach. I've taught it 3 or 4 times now. There are a lot of little rules that you kind of have to wait until you get started. Like, oh, by the way, if you're battling and you don't have cubes, you can take them off of an island. That's little things like that slow down the initial teach.
Wait a minute, that's a rule?
Yeah. No, because your cubes are numbered, right? I mean, they don't have numbers on them, but they're limited. If you go to battle and you don't have enough cubes for as many cannons that you have.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You can choose to pull them off of an island that you control, following more specific rules.
Yeah.
That you can't
we
change
never
the
did
influence.
that. I don't
right.
think, right.
We've never come to the point that we've done that. And I've played 6 or 7 or 8 times.
Right.
It hasn't happened, but there are little rules like that just make the teach even longer. And there are some rules that you kind of save until the game gets going a little bit. But it's a hard game to teach, I think. I don't think it's super hard to play once you get going, but it is a hard teach. The other thing I don't love in a 2-player game, you're adding in more open water tiles or open sea tiles, which is good. There's fewer islands to go to, but the game is still wide open. And you can play a 2-player game where you hardly interact with the other player at all. And you kind of, in a lot of cases, can just do influence on the islands you go after. And I've had a game with my son where it ended and the row or the column of islands going out to the 4th region were all the same color in each column. So blue and yellow, or blue in one column and yellow in the other column. And then in the middle, there was a little bit of mixing going on, but 2-player game, it's too wide open. Small thing. I still enjoy my plays at 2-player. It's still a lot of fun, but yeah, I think it plays better at 3 and 4.
Yeah, I have not a lot I dislike about this game. The first time I played, I thought it was really weird when you're battling that I could do a ton of damage to the person that I was battling, they could just have one of their cubes fall in one crown and they beat me. I thought that was just the weirdest thing. I just destroyed your ship, almost.
But you won the battle.
But you had this little cube fall in a crown and you won the battle. I'm like, wow, how does that make any sense? I thought, thematically that kind of broke down a little bit and it was kind of weird. That was just an expectation thing, I think, for the first game. Subsequent games, it hasn't bothered me as much, but that whole battle thing at the first game was just kind of wonky and weird for me.
That first play was rough, though.
That first play was rough. It was rough.
The game was pretty close, or fairly close, and then over the course of like the last 2 rounds, I probably scored 30 points from people attacking me, ship being destroyed, getting multiple achievements I didn't think I was going to get. I left feeling bad because there was a disparity in scores there, and I felt like I had kind of ruined the game for everybody. But I don't know.
Yeah. So for me, that's just a small thing. Another real small thing is the whole setting sails.
I was going to mention this.
Mechanic. It's kind of hard to get your head around, but once you do, it's not that big of a deal. It's just kind of a weird mechanic to get your movement points. But very small little.
It's the trickiest thing
right?
to wrap your head around, I think, in the game.
It is.
Once you do, it's
and ultimately, it is a small complaint.
Yeah, after your first play, I think you don't even think about it.
So I think that is a good sampling of some of the things that we don't necessarily like, but a lot of the things that we do like about this game. Let's move on to our final thoughts with this game and what our overall experience with this is. I'm going to start this because, as I said earlier, this was my first play. I've only played this game once, so consider my final thoughts more of a first impressions than a full-on review, because I'm sure that there are things that would change. But overall, this game, as a first impression, really excited me. This was a game that looking at it just on Kickstarter, I remember watching this. I was super close to backing it myself. I didn't end up, and I kind of kicked myself. I loved the idea of card crafting, and I loved the idea of a nautical pirate open seas board game, and that's something that I've loved the idea of for a long time, and I've wanted a really high quality pirate style board game, and I don't think I've had the opportunity to play one of those. The closest I can think of is Seafall. I got to play Seafall, and it had a lot of potential of a lot of things that I really enjoyed about it, but it didn't end up delivering on that promise. And there's a lot of this that feels kind of like the things that I loved about Seafall, but this does it in a way, from what I've experienced so far, that I think has the potential to be a game that I can come back to time and time again and just continue to get enjoyment out of, to get that pirate theme experience. I mentioned this to Kevin while we were playing. I asked him if he had ever played Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which to me is the most exciting pirate themed game in any genre that I've ever played, and I really enjoyed that. This reminded me of that in a lot of ways, with the way that you control the islands and be able to see that history. You get to explore the open sea, you go and gain stuff, you can work in a way that is either for your own personal benefit and fly your pirate flag, or you can go and be more peaceful and just a general open sea sailor. And I love that about this game. There's a lot of discovery, as I mentioned. There's things that really excite me about this game. It's one that I am excited to try again at more than this first time. And it's one that I really want to explore more. So with that said, I would say that my overall rating for this, there's a few things that I don't really enjoy about the game and some concerns I have about it. It's not a perfect game, but for right now, as a first impression, I'd say this is a 4 out of 5 and has the potential to get beyond that and become a 5 out of a 5.
So for my final rating, I really like this game. I mean, who doesn't like pirates, right? And it's by far the best pirate game that I've played. I don't have a whole lot of experience with pirate games. Pirates Cove comes to mind, and I cannot stand that game. We could talk about that another time, I guess. But there's a lot that I really like about this game. The card crafting is amazing. This is the first card crafting game that I've played, and it pulls it off so well. It makes me want to play other card crafting games that are out there. The variable setup is amazing. I love the different tiles that you flip over, the different upgrade cards that are going to vary for every game that you play. So every game you play is going to be different, which is awesome. Like I mentioned before, the variable paths to victory, it just doesn't focus you in on one thing. You can focus on different things every time you play, which is really cool. Very small gripes that I already mentioned, which really don't detract a whole lot from the game. So, with that said, like you mentioned, Tyson, it's a great game. It's not a perfect game. I would gladly play it anytime it's offered. But I think it lands at a 4 for me.
I'm just going to say it right off the bat. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. I love this game. I've loved it from the moment I opened it up and played it the first time. I love the setup in this game. We didn't really talk about this, but it takes like 5 minutes to set this game up and get going. And it's a complicated game with lots of components, but the setup is so quick to get going. I love that it feels, no matter what strategy you're going for, the game feels balanced. I love that you can go after, trying to control islands. You can go after the battle. You can go after just producing tons of gold and taking it back. I love all the decisions that it creates. I love that it feels balanced. I love the card crafting. It feels like it is such an influential part of every part of the game. And it's the most exciting part of the game. And it's awesome. And it's fun. And we didn't even talk about it, but I have the Sea Dogs expansion that I've played with that adds a card draft to the game that gives you asymmetric crew members that replace a few of the crew that you start with. So you get their normal abilities, plus when they get to level 3 or level 4, they might have an additional power that they can use, or something that they've learned to do that also benefits you. But it has that draft at the beginning of the game, which who doesn't love drafting cards in a game, right? There are so many things I love about this game. I've made a ton of comparisons to it, both on the podcast and while we've been playing it, to Scythe. For me, I keep going back to, I've been as excited about this game the first few times I played it as I was the first few times I played Scythe. The first few times I played it, it was just, I can't explain how exciting it was. And it felt fresh and new, and something that I haven't felt for a long time about a board game. I still have loved every play. It's interesting to see the different strategies and at different player counts, all the different interactions that happen. This is absolutely a 5 for 5 for me. I can't wait to try out the additional Saga expansions. I've got 2 Saga expansions to play. There's a single player mode. There's a 2-player co-op mode where you play against 2 AI. Dude, I think that looks awesome. And maybe that'll be more enjoyable at 2-player than just a wide open 2-player game. But I'm excited to explore all that additional content. Like I said, AEG is doing another Kickstarter sometime this summer. They're going to add another Saga expansion. I hope that they address the pirate flag issue. And I hope there's a little bit more than just one additional Saga expansion. But 5 for 5, Dead Reckoning, in contest for my game of the year of 2022.
So you hear high praise, I think, from all of us here. This is a good game. This is, if you like anything that you've heard here, be sure to check out Dead Reckoning. It's one that I'm sure it won't be the last time you've heard from us talking about it. We'll probably bring this up again on the podcast, but that's it for our review of Dead Reckoning. All right, so before we close out this episode, we got to talk about what we're excited about, right? Start us off, Kevin, what are you excited about?
Yeah, I'm excited about a few things. I talked earlier in the episode about Azul. There is a new Azul coming out. That is Azul Queen's Garden. And I just saw a notification that our local game shop got it in. I'm sure Amazon and other online retailers have it in as well. I've seen, social media posts where other people have been playing it. I'm excited. I love Azul. And as I mentioned before, I love all the different iterations of Azul. This one I've heard is a little bit more
Gamer's game.
Yeah, gamey type of thing, which I'm all for that. I do love the simplicity of Azul, so hopefully it plays well. I have high hopes for it, though. Anyway,
it begs the question for me: is there a point at which there will stop being Azul games, or can this? It's an abstract game, so it can basically continue on forever.
Are they making money?
Right.
They're probably going to keep making Azuls. Right?
I don't disagree, but is
it going to be saturated?
It's right. It's its own IP essentially of itself, and it's not one that I would have thought, hey, that's going to be a showstopper. But it's awesome how well it's done.
This is the first one I haven't pre-ordered, and I'll probably be content to play your copy.
Oh, okay. Are you done with Azul then, you think?
I'm not done. I guess I'm to the point where I want to play your copy, and if I like it, then I'll get it. Or if I think my family will like it, then I'll get it. But
yeah, my family loves Azul, so I'll probably get every one that comes out. Plus, them all lined up on my shelf look pretty cool.
Which sounds
together.
It sounds like that's the thing, right? Because it can be accessed by anybody. You said this one's going to be a little bit more gamers gamey, right? So maybe this one won't be as popular as because a lot of these are going into big box stores and getting bought by mass market consumption. So if it
is more, that is interesting. But maybe it gets more people into the heavier. Not that this is going to be super heavy, I can't imagine, but if it's more complex than any of the other ones, maybe that brings more people into the more complicated games, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll see how it plays. I'll be picking it up shortly, I'm sure, but that's one of the things I'm excited about.
So I'll go next, and one of the things I'm excited about is another game that is continuing on, similar to Azul's continuing on. This is a game that is continuing on in a different way. It's Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. It was originally published by Tasty Minstrel Games, and you may or may not know Tasty Minstrel's kind of gone by the wayside to this point.
Gone the way of all the earth.
Yeah. I mean, there's the chance that it will come back. The CEO had said that it's not necessarily all the way gone, but basically all of the games that it was publishing have reverted back to other publishers or aren't going to be printed at this point. Well, one thing I'm excited about is, with Crusaders, is that it was picked up by Renegade Games. They purchased the rights for it, and they are printing it again. So you can go on to not Restoration Games, but Renegade Games website and pre-order it now. And not only that, it's getting an expansion. So it's being reprinted by Renegade Games, and then the expansion itself is Crusaders Thy Will Be Done. So the expansion is Crusaders Divine Influence. And this had already been created before TMG went away, and they had planned to release this expansion, but it never ended up getting released. So now people who had been wanting this expansion for a while are going to get it. I own the base game version of this. I don't own the super deluxe Kickstarter version, which is amazing. Its production is super awesome, but I own the base game. And I've played it a number of times, and I really enjoy it. So I'm excited to see this getting the expansion after all this time. And I'll be interested to see how it plays.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds fun.
So one of the things I'm excited about is Nemesis Lockdown. This was a Kickstarter from Awaken Realms and is a follow-up to Nemesis, the first game.
Oops.
Yeah, whoops. It's been showing up for a while for people across the U.S., and I finally got my shipping notice, and it's going to be here in the next couple of days, and I can't wait. Nemesis, of course, it's semi-cooperative, right? You're walking around. In the original game, you're on a spaceship. In this one, you're going to be on Mars. It's got a multi-level board. There's some other new things like you can have the lights turned off and on, and the power turned off and on. So, you might be fighting some new aliens in the dark or in the light, and different mechanics there. Hopefully it's a little more streamlined and just, a little more enhanced, but I can't wait to play this. Excited to finally get it. So that's Nemesis Lockdown.
Sweet. Why does it always take you so long to get your Kickstarters?
I don't know. So this one, I added a couple of add-ons. I'm starting to wonder if you add on stuff that you get kind of put to the end of they can do some of the more...
That or somebody at
Cookie
Quartermaster
cutter
Logistics just really
Right?
doesn't like you.
Did they fulfill the Ankh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I had that for like 2 months before you got your coffee.
Jacked up. Yeah. No, I was like, did you guys lose it? Like, come on. Again, Root Marauder Kickstarter. One of the Root expansions starting to show up all over the place. Don't even have a shipping notice yet. It is.
There's
It's
a trend here.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Like,
And I didn't
something's
add
wrong.
on anything extra to that one, I don't think. I do wonder sometimes if you add on any add-ons that take it outside of the cookie cutter. Hey, here's your huge box of just like everybody else's, right? I think that might bump you to the end sometimes. I don't know. It's like there's been games where I backed Ankh 10 seconds into the Kickstarter starting, and I was one of the last people to get it. So who knows? I don't know. Maybe there's a first in, last out mechanic going on there. Yeah. So anyway, I've loved all the plays of Nemesis that I've played. I'm excited to have new aliens, new maps, or a new map, fighting for survival on Mars, throwing Molotov cocktails back at Kevin.
That's not going to happen. That still was my favorite
That
moment of any Nemesis game I've played. I haven't played a whole lot, but killing you with the Molotov cocktail was a highlight.
Yeah. Right after we had destroyed some intruders together.
Yeah.
And then Kevin steps out of the room. Yoink.
Let me just put this here.
Yeah.
Will you hold on to this for a second?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Which that's what I'm excited for. These games create thematic.
It has got to be
moments.
one of the most cinematic games out there. Like
Yeah.
it does a great job of creating experiences.
It does. And just for the record, I didn't kill you just to kill you. It was part of my objective.
Right. Which
So
Unlike
kind of
Dead
makes it
Reckoning,
okay.
where you just killed me to kill me.
No, that was part of my
that was also
objective as
part-
well. I generally am not just a mean player.
You can't
but
hide behind that every time. It sounds like you're killing people a lot.
Yes. Well, I do what I can.
which I would expect from Tyson.
You're what? Why are you turning this back onto me?
Name a
You're
time.
the one.
Name a time.
So Shelly actually messaged me a minute ago, and she said, since you already did top 5 cooperatives, you should do top 5 Take That with Tyson.
Oh, right.
You'd like that, right?
Right up your alley.
Yeah. I don't know that I could come up with 5.
I don't think I could.
Because I am generally just in it for the fun and the experience.
I don't
and
know
not
that I played a ton of
backstabbing people. Take that.
I like high conflict games, but I don't know that I love just specifically Take That as the style.
You like backstabby stuff.
I like high conflict. Yes, I do. It's
just to be mean more than anything, right?
Anyway, Nemesis Lockdown.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Welcome back.
glad to be here. Glad to be here.
We missed you.
We did.
A
miss you.
likely story.
Oh, we did. We missed you. One other thing I'm excited for is we've talked about it before. About 6 months ago, Halo Infinite came out. I don't want to say how much I've played the game since it came out, but we play it pretty frequently. It's a lot of fun. So the reason why I bring it up is the new Paramount Plus TV show, Halo. I'm caught up on that. Actually, there's half of the last episode I haven't watched yet, but everything that I've watched, I think it's just really well done. I've enjoyed pretty much every episode. It's really fun for me. I've been playing Halo for about 20 years. Well, since it's come out on the original Xbox, and it's cool to see a live action version of some of the things I've been playing around with in the video games for years. So,
there's been some live action stuff in the past.
Yep.
And I enjoyed those ish, but like I've been watching this as well, and this has done a really good job, I think, of embodying what Halo is and being its own thing too, because it's not necessarily true to
the
lore of Halo, which
Yeah.
is fine for me. Like for me personally, that doesn't bother me because I like exploring an IP and seeing takes on it. So I've really enjoyed it as well. I think they're doing a great job with it.
Yeah, and I get people's gripe that it's not lore accurate necessarily. I've never really dug into the lore myself. I mean, I played the games, but I haven't read the books or I'm kind of just playing the game for the fun action part of it, but so that doesn't bother me at all. I think it's just a cool Halo story, and it's cool to see, somebody getting blown up by a needler.
I think my one complaint with it would be Master Chief doesn't wear his helmet enough. Like, it's a weird complaint because, like, Mandalorian, it was like, oh, I want to see Mandalorian's face, right? Like, but this one, I'm like, oh, I want to see the iconic Master Chief helmet on a lot more, and he does wear it, obviously, but he wears it
does, but not
less
a lot
than I would have imagined.
I did watch a few minutes. They had the first episode for free on YouTube of Halo, and we watched it for a few minutes. But my niece was here, and she was a little younger, and it was pretty violent.
It is
first few minutes.
is brutal with the plasma weapons from the Covenant.
But it was so cool.
Oh my gosh. It was awesome. And seeing the elites and how big just like they make them, they're scary, right? I can't even imagine one of those things coming at you. It's cool. It's well done.
I'm waiting for a
It's good
hunter.
to hear that you guys.
I'm waiting for a hunter.
That's got to be in the
what I wanna
finale,
see.
right?
That's gotta be. But they
It's got
kinda
a lot of
spoilery,
mixed
but-
reviews.
It does, but I think that's, like I was saying, the hardcore, people who want lore accurate Halo, right? This isn't it. But I think it's well done. It shows, the history of Master Chief, and like I said, seeing stuff in the video games in live action is pretty dang cool. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this first season ends up, and they've already ordered a second season, so we know another one's coming, which is cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the last thing I want to talk about that I'm excited about is another expansion. So Crusaders was an expansion, but this is an expansion of a game that I know both Kevin and Tyler are super excited by. And by that, I mean, I don't know if I'll ever get it played. Sidereal Confluence, right? Sidereal Confluence Bifurcation expansion came out. And I ended up...
What is it called?
It didn't come out, sorry. Sidereal Confluence Bifurcation.
It sounds like somebody's burping or some kind of bodily functions going on.
You can continue to make fun of it
The
all
bodily
you
function
want,
expansion.
but
Bifurcation.
it's an additional content to a great game that you guys are missing out on.
This has got a lot of simultaneous play, right?
It does. It does have a lot of simultaneous play. So you're doing a lot of stuff on your turn. There's some trading going on and negotiation, and there's a lot of interesting interchange between that. And you've got these engines that you have access to, but you can also trade those to other people. There's a lot of good content in here, and it's all asymmetrical. So everybody is playing with different player powers and abilities and having different engines and way to accomplish things. So as you're trading these with different people, you're getting access to something that is exclusive technology that nobody else has, and you can use that to negotiate. And people are like, oh, that I really want that. So it's really exciting. I ended up pre-ordering this one. I was going back and forth on it, and I wasn't sure if it was one that I was going to end up getting or not. And then as time went on, I ended up caving and buying it. And that was thanks to one of our listeners, Greg Wilson, who goes by Black Sheep on BGG. It ended up convincing me when we talked about it back in episode 8. He said, hey, you should really get it. It works with your less than compatible version of, so there's two editions of this, and I've got the first edition, which is not as great looking. And he ended up saying that, hey, it'll work with that. And that ended up being what convinced me ultimately to pre-order this. So I'm excited to finally get that one that comes out later this year.
It looks like a table hog.
It is a table hog.
There are just,
components
pictures
everywhere
on BGG. There are just cards after cards after cards spread out on tables on these pictures.
Whoa. I think I probably just pulled up the picture you pulled up. Like,
yeah, there's a bunch of them.
What is happening?
Yeah. And because it plays up to 9 players, if you're playing the full complement of players, you need a very large play space for this. And I've only done that once, and it was...
you played it at 9?
It was in a con situation. I was at a local convention, and we got 9 people to play it. And it was a fantastic time. But yes, the hard thing about 9 players is because it's so large, and part of the game is you're trading with people. If you're at such a large table space, it's hard to negotiate with somebody who's clear across on the other side of the table.
Get your megaphone out.
Yeah. So so there is that downside. I like it at like about 6 players. I think that's a great count for it.
Nice.
Sounds amazing.
See?
When you
Let's
get
play
that
next week.
expansion, I will play with you.
I will play as well. I've told you before that.
But we need to find one more poor soul to play with us.
Correct. Which I think we can do. I think we can do. So.
Sure, Ben or Mark or Dan will play.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited about
I will play.
Sidereal Confluence Bifurcation expansion.
Awesome.
So I think that wraps up what we're excited about. And consequently, it also wraps up the episode. So thank you for joining us and listening to another episode of the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. If you want more Longest Turn in your life, be sure to check us out on social media, specifically Instagram. We post a lot of pictures of what we play there. We also have a lot of content on BoardGameGeek.com. You can check out our Guild 3947, as well as check out our blog, The Longest Turn, where we post content about games that we're playing and talk about them more in depth than we may hear, if you can believe it. Check out some of the things that we're reviewing there. We'd love to interact with you as well, so if you want to come play a game or two with us, check us out and join our Board Game Arena group, The Longest Turn Podcast. And until next time, keep playing board games.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
So long.
That's it. Goodbye.
Adios.
And rather than adding new cards, this deck I probably have 50 to 70 plays of this one at this point.
Whatever, Kevin. It was 44. I had 44 plays.
Oh, 44
I
plays.
wasn't right on either number.
Thanks, Kevin, for that rules overview. Let's talk a little bit about Dead Reckoning. To start us off, let's talk about what... man, it's been a while. I just got to remember how we do it. Intro.
This is how we do
Rules,
it.
production, gameplay, what we like. All right, so I think that wraps up what we've been playing lately. Now we get to talk about a seafaring adventure style
Are
game.
you ready?
I can't wait for all the pirate puns.
I actually didn't. I didn't come up with very many, or any at all, actually.
What's a pirate's favorite place to eat? Arby's.
What did the ocean say to the pirate?
Wait.
I don't know what.
Nothing. It just waved.
I was going to say it.
Good.
Yeah.
I got one.
Okay.
No, I'm still putting it together. Sorry.
Well, this is it's a complicated joke.
I had the punchline and then realized I don't have the rest of the joke.
Why don't pirates shower before they walk the plank? Because they'll just wash up on shore later.
What?
I don't even think I get it.
I don't get that one.
Why don't they shower before they walk the plank? Because they'll wash up on shore later.
Oh my gosh.
I was just thinking dead bodies, but hey.
Who gets all their movies for free? Pirates.
Doesn't even joke.
No, that's terrible.
Funny. Why does it take pirates so long to learn the alphabet? Because they can spend years at sea.
What does a pirate name his dog? The plank. That's why he's always walking
the
plank.
Oh my gosh.
Do pirates like to fight?
Yes.
Sort of.
That was bad.
These are the best ones I
They're
found.
actually pretty good. Something with the
What do you call twins? Pirate twins? Doubloons.
doubloons.
I
I don't know if I get that. Yeah. Do you get that one?
No.
I was just gonna pretend like I don't want to look stupid.
No, I didn't get it.
Where can ye find a pirate who has lost his wooden legs? Right where ye left him.
I was going to say the carpenter.
Also good.
Yeah.
Is your sister marrying a pirate? Not on my watch. What's a pirate's favorite type of exercise?
Aerobics.
Planks.
Oh.
I like aerobics.
Dang it.
I saw it, but he didn't.
I was trying to get your attention because there's no stopping that. Sorry.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Are you okay?
You may want to start over.